Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. Under the guise of another mundane evening, the sun dipped below the horizon, cloaking our home in shadows that seemed to whisper secrets I wished remained untold. My name, David Thompson, once a symbol of a man confident in the love he shared with his wife, Eliza, now felt like a question mark at the end of an unfinished sentence. The air between us, once filled with laughter and shared whispers, now hosted a silence as dense as fog. It was in this silence that I decided to broach the chasm that had wedged itself between us. Eliza, we need to talk. You've been distant lately. Is everything all right? My voice, steadier than I felt, sought to pierce the veil she had drawn around herself. She paused, a flicker of something crossing her face before she masked it with a smile too brittle to be genuine. Oh, David, it's nothing. Just the stress from work. You know how it is, she replied, her voice a melody played in the wrong key. But I knew. The intuition that gnaws at the edges of your consciousness had taken a firm hold, whispering truths I yearned to ignore. Eliza's late nights at the office, the whispered phone calls she thought I didn't hear, and the scent of a cologne that wasn't mine lingering on her clothes. The evening waned, and as Eliza retreated to the sanctuary of our bedroom, ostensibly to work on reports, I remained ensnared in my thoughts. It was then that fate, in the guise of my brother-in-law Ethan, decided to add its twist to the tale. The phone rang, a jarring sound against the backdrop of our silent home. Ethan's voice, when I answered, was laced with urgency and something darker. David, we need to talk. It's about Eliza and Jenny. My heart, already heavy with suspicion, sank further. Jenny, Ethan's wife, and Eliza were not just sisters but confidants, their bond unbreakable, or so I had believed. What about them, Ethan? What's going on? My voice was a whisper, fearing the answer even as I sought it. They've been. God, David, I don't know how to say this. I think Eliza is having an affair. And Jenny's involved somehow. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, the ground unsteady beneath my feet. The betrayal, a specter I had hoped was just a figment of my imagination, was now a flesh and blood wound. How do you know this, Ethan? Are you sure? Desperation tinged my voice, a man grasping at straws, hoping to find falsehood in his words. I've seen messages, David, and more. I followed Jenny one night. She met with someone who isn't me, and Eliza was there. The confession hit like a physical blow, the air knocked from my lungs. The silence that followed was heavy, pregnant with the weight of unsaid words and shattered trust. I need to confront her, Ethan. I have to know the truth. My voice was steel, the resolve hardening around the shards of my broken heart. David, be careful. We don't know everything yet. Let's meet tomorrow, plan our next steps. Together. The line went dead, but the echo of his words lingered. The night stretched on, a canvas painted with the colors of my torment. Eliza's betrayal, a specter that now haunted the halls of our home, had torn the veil from my eyes. As dawn's first light crept through the curtains, casting shadows that danced like specters of doubt, I knew what I had to do. The path ahead was fraught with pain and uncertainty, but I would walk it. For in the heart of deception, the truth waits to be freed, and I would be its liberator. Dawn's light did little to dispel the darkness that had settled over me. The morning felt like a stage set for a tragedy, with me as its unwilling protagonist. I sat at the kitchen table, the remnants of last night's revelations a bitter companion to my morning coffee. Eliza, ever the early riser, moved around the kitchen with a practiced grace, a stark contrast to the turmoil churning within me. Our morning routine, once a dance of shared glances and soft touches, now felt like a pantomime of normalcy. David, you're quiet this morning. Is everything okay? Eliza's voice, tinged with concern, broke through my reverie. I looked up, meeting her gaze. The eyes that once promised forever now held secrets I was desperate to uncover. We need to talk, Eliza. About us. About what's been happening. The air between us charged, a prelude to the storm I knew was coming. She paused, a delicate frown marring her brow. What do you mean? David, you're scaring me. The weight of Ethan's revelations pressed down on me, a burden I could no longer bear alone. It's about the affair, Eliza. Your affair. The words hung between us, a guillotine poised to sever the last threads of our marriage. Her reaction was immediate, a mix of shock and denial painted across her features. Affair? David, I don't know what you're talking about. Who's been filling your head with these lies? The charade, a dance around the truth, fueled my resolve. It's not lies, Eliza. Ethan told me everything. About you, about Jenny. I know about the late nights, the secret meetings. I know about the cologne. Her defenses shattered, the facade crumbling under the weight of truth. David, please, you have to believe me. It's not what you think. It's complicated. Complicated. The word echoed, a mocking reminder of the simplicity we had once cherished. Complicated? How, Eliza? How can betrayal be anything but simple? The conversation escalated, a torrent of accusations and denials that battered against the remnants of our trust. You don't understand, David. Yes, I've been meeting someone, but it's not an affair. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. Mistake? Is that what you call it? How can you justify this, Eliza? How can you stand there and tell me it was just a mistake? Our kitchen, once a sanctuary of love and warmth, had become a battlefield. The air was thick with the scent of betrayal, every word a volley in a war that had no winners. It was then that Ethan arrived, his presence a reminder of the shared agony that bound us. David, we need to talk. Privately. Eliza's gaze shifted between us, a silent plea for understanding in her eyes. But the time for silence was past. With a heavy heart, I followed Ethan into the living room, leaving Eliza amidst the ruins of our life together. Ethan, what's going on? What did you find out? My voice was a whisper, the strength drained by the morning's confrontation. Ethan's face was a mask of sorrow, the burden of his knowledge a visible weight on his shoulders. It's worse than we thought, David. I've seen the messages, the photos. It's not just an affair. It's a web of lies and deception. And it's not just Eliza and Jenny. There are others involved. The revelation was a gut punch, the implications far-reaching and devastating. Others? What do you mean? He handed me a folder, the contents a stark testament to the truth we had been too blind to see. Photos, messages, evidence of a betrayal that went beyond anything I had imagined. As we pored over the evidence, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. The late nights, the whispered secrets, the unexplained absences. It was all there, laid bare in the harsh light of truth. The discussion that followed was a blur, a cacophony of anger, disbelief, and shattered illusions. Plans were made, strategies devised. The path ahead was fraught with heartache and legal battles, but the course was clear. We would confront them, demand answers to the questions that burned in our hearts. It was a declaration of war, a vow to unearth the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As Ethan and I prepared to face the storm together, I couldn't help but wonder how it had come to this. How the love I had cherished, the life I had built, had become a house of cards, ready to collapse at the slightest breeze. The day stretched before us, a gauntlet we were determined to run. Together, we would face the unwelcome truths, armed with the evidence of betrayal. The battle lines were drawn, and I, David Thompson, would no longer be a passive player in the drama of my own life. The storm was upon us, and I was ready to face it head-on. The sun had barely crested the horizon when I found myself pacing the length of my living room, the weight of the upcoming confrontation pressing heavily upon my shoulders. The evidence Ethan and I had compiled lay scattered across the coffee table, each photograph, each message, a testament to the betrayal that had seeped into the very foundation of my life with Eliza. Ethan arrived, his face etched with lines of worry that mirrored my own. "David, are you ready for this?" he asked, his voice steady but his eyes betraying the storm of emotions raging within. "As ready as I'll ever be," I responded, the resolve in my voice belying the turmoil I felt. We had agreed to confront Eliza and Jenny together, to demand answers, and, perhaps foolishly, seek some semblance of understanding. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway signaled the arrival of our wives. The moment of reckoning was upon us. Ethan and I exchanged a look, a silent pact between brothers in arms, before we steeled ourselves and opened the door. Eliza and Jenny stepped into the living room, their expressions a mix of confusion and apprehension. "David, Ethan, what's going on? Why did you ask us to come here so early?" Eliza's voice trembled slightly, a crack in her usually composed demeanor. Without a word, Ethan and I began to lay out the evidence we had gathered. Photos slid across the table, messages read aloud, each piece a blow to the facade that Eliza and Jenny had maintained. "Is this true?" I finally asked, my voice a mix of anger and heartache. "Were you both really willing to throw everything away for what? A fling? An adventure?" Eliza's face crumbled, the walls she had built around her secrets collapsing under the weight of undeniable truth. "David, She started, her voice barely a whisper, but the words seemed to catch in her throat. Jenny was the first to break, her tears falling freely as she buried her face in her hands. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake, she sobbed, her confession a dam breaking, releasing a flood of pent-up guilt and remorse. The room was thick with tension, each confession, each plea for forgiveness, a strike to the heart. The women we had loved, trusted, and built our lives around stood before us as strangers, their infidelities laid bare. Ethan, I never meant to hurt you. It got out of control, Jenny managed through her tears, her words doing little to quell the storm of emotions raging within Ethan. And you, Eliza? What do you have to say for yourself? I asked, my voice steady despite the chaos that threatened to overwhelm me. Eliza met my gaze, her eyes searching mine for a trace of the love that had once bound us together. David, I'm so sorry. I was lost, confused. I thought I was looking for something that was missing, but I was wrong. I realize that now, but it's too late. The admissions, the apologies, they swirled around us, a maelstrom of betrayal and regret. But amidst the cacophony of our shattered lives, a resolve began to take shape within me. The masquerade had fallen, the truths laid bare, and the path forward, though fraught with pain, was clear. As the morning gave way to afternoon, the confrontation drew to a close, leaving behind a silence that was deafening in its finality. Eliza and Jenny, once pillars of our shared existence, now stood as monuments to the folly of misplaced desires and the fragility of trust. Ethan and I watched in silence as they left, the distance between us and our wives growing with each step they took. The door closed with a soft click, a punctuation mark at the end of a chapter we had never wished to write. In the aftermath, the living room felt like a battlefield, the air heavy with the echoes of the war we had waged for truth. But even as the dust settled, I knew that this was not the end. The road to healing, to rebuilding, lay ahead, long and uncertain. Yet, amidst the ruins of my broken heart, a determination took root. I would not allow this betrayal to define me. The masquerade had fallen, yes, but from its ashes, I would rise. The journey ahead would be mine alone, a path forged from the lessons of the past and the hope for a future yet unwritten. In the quiet aftermath of the storm, the house that Eliza and I had built together stood as a silent witness to the turmoil that had unfolded within its walls. The echoes of our confrontation lingered, haunting the spaces where laughter and love once resided. As I walked through the empty rooms, memories, like specters, rose from the shadows, each one a poignant reminder of what had been lost. I found myself standing before the mantel, where pictures of happier times mocked me with their frozen smiles. My fingers traced the frame of a photo taken on a beach in Cancun, the sun setting behind us as we embraced, oblivious to the world. How did we get here, Eliza? I whispered to the ghost of her image, but the silence that answered spoke volumes. The ringing of the phone shattered the stillness, a harsh intrusion into my reverie. It was Ethan, his voice strained but determined. David, we need to meet. There's something I've found, something about the past. Curiosity piqued, I agreed, and soon found myself sitting across from Ethan in the dim light of a downtown bar, the kind of place where secrets were traded like currency. He slid a folder across the table, his gaze heavy with significance. David, it's about our families, about Eliza and Jenny's past, and ours. His words were a key turning in a lock I hadn't known existed. As I opened the folder, documents and photos spilled out, each one a piece of a puzzle that I hadn't realized was incomplete. There were old letters, faded with time, and photographs of people I recognized but couldn't place, friends and relatives entwined in a history more complex than I had ever imagined. Ethan, what is this? My voice was barely above a whisper, the weight of discovery pressing down on me. It's our history, David. Our parents, their relationships. There were secrets, affairs that go back decades. It's like a cycle, repeating over and over. Ethan's words were a mirror reflecting a legacy of betrayal that stretched back through the generations. The revelations tumbled forth, each one a blow to the foundation of what I had believed to be true. Our fathers, best friends turned rivals over a woman's affection. Our mothers, caught in a web of lies and deceit that mirrored our own. The past was not just a backdrop to our lives, but a blueprint for the present. As Ethan and I delved deeper into the archives of our family's histories, the pieces began to fit together, forming a picture that was as tragic as it was enlightening. The affairs, the broken marriages, the silent battles fought in the shadows, all were echoes of a past that had shaped us more than we had known. The bar around us faded into the background as we pieced together the narrative of our lineage, a saga marked by love and loss, fidelity and betrayal. It was as if we were uncovering a map that led not to treasure, but to a better understanding of the terrain of our own hearts. David, do you think? Do you think we were doomed from the start? Bet this. Cycle was always going to catch up to us. Ethan's question hung in the air, a specter that neither of us could dismiss. I pondered his words, the gravity of our discovery settling around me like a cloak. Maybe, I admitted, the taste of the word bitter on my tongue. But knowing this, understanding where we come from, maybe we can break the cycle. Maybe we can be the ones to change the narrative. The conversation stretched into the night, the past unfolding before us like a roadmap. With each story, each secret unearthed, the weight of our family's legacies pressed upon us, a burden we were now tasked with carrying. But within that burden lay a seed of hope, a chance to forge a new path free from the shadows of the past. As Ethan and I left the bar, stepping into the cool embrace of the night, I felt a resolve take root within me. The echoes of the past would always be a part of us, whispers of what had been that shaped our present, but they would not dictate our future. Armed with the knowledge of where we came from, Ethan and I could chart a course towards a future unburdened by the sins of our fathers. The night stretched before us, vast and uncharted, but for the first time since the masquerade fell, I felt a flicker of hope. In the echoes of the past, I had found not just the seeds of betrayal, but the possibility of redemption. And with that, I stepped into the darkness, determined to leave the shadows behind. The first light of dawn had not yet pierced the darkness of the night sky when I found myself on the desolate shores of the lake where Eliza and I had once shared promises under a blanket of stars. The cold bite of the morning air was a sharp contrast to the warmth of those memories, now tainted by the revelations of betrayal and the ancestral sins unearthed alongside Ethan. Yet, amidst the ruins of what was, a resolve had taken root, a determination to seek redemption, not just for myself, but for the lineage that had unwittingly set the stage for our tragedy. As I stood there, alone, the silence was broken by the unexpected sound of footsteps approaching from behind. I turned to find Ethan, his presence a silent testament to the bond that had been forged through our shared ordeal. Couldn't sleep either, huh? Ethan's voice was rough with the weight of our recent discoveries. No. It seems sleep is a luxury afforded to those unburdened by the ghosts of the past, I replied, my gaze returning to the dark waters that seemed to mirror the turmoil within. Ethan stood beside me, his eyes also fixed on the horizon. David, do you think there's a way out of this cycle? Can we really break free from the shadows that have haunted our families for generations? I pondered his question, the vast expanse of the lake before us a metaphor for the journey of redemption we were contemplating, a journey fraught with uncertainty, but also filled with the potential for renewal. I believe we can, Ethan, but it won't be easy. Redemption is a road paved with the hard stones of truth, forgiveness, and change. We've taken the first step by confronting the past. Now, we need to forge a new path, one that leads away from the mistakes of our ancestors. Ethan nodded, a grim determination settling over his features. I agree. It starts with us, here and now. We need to be the change we wish to see in our lineage. But where do we begin? The question hung between us, a challenge to the vow we had made to not let the past dictate our futures. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle upon my shoulders. It begins with accountability. We need to own our part in the perpetuation of this cycle. We confront it, learn from it, and then we make amends where we can. Most importantly, we build a future that honors the lessons learned from the pain of the past. Ethan's eyes met mine, a fire kindling within them, a fire sparked by the prospect of redemption. And what of Eliza and Jenny? Where do they fit into this new future we're envisioning? The question was a shard of ice piercing the warmth of my resolve. Eliza, the woman I had loved beyond reason, had become the symbol of my greatest pain. Yet, within the crucible of betrayal, I had glimpsed the frailty of the human heart. Her actions, though inexcusable, were a reflection of the complex tapestry of desires, fears, and unmet needs that define us all. They are part of this journey, Ethan, not as the partners we thought we knew, but as individuals grappling with their own demons and seeking their own redemption. We can offer forgiveness, but we cannot walk their path for them. Our focus must be on healing ourselves and breaking the cycle for the generations that follow. As the first rays of dawn began to illuminate the sky, casting a golden glow over the dark waters, Ethan and I stood in silent agreement. The road to redemption would be long and fraught with challenges, but it was a journey worth taking. In that moment, as the day broke over the horizon, I felt the first stirrings of hope, a hope that the pain of the past could be transformed into the foundation for a new beginning. With each step forward, we would carve a new legacy, one not defined by betrayal and heartache, but by resilience, forgiveness, and the courage to forge a different path. The lake, once a mirror of darkness, now reflected the light of a new dawn. And with it, the promise that redemption, though a road less traveled, was within our grasp. The world was awash with the soft light of dawn, a new day breaking over the horizon like a promise. The air held a crispness that spoke of beginnings, and the earth itself seemed to stir from slumber, ready to face the sun. I stood at the edge of the precipice, the metaphorical cliff from which I would leap into the unknown depths of a future uncharted, forged from the fires of redemption and the ashes of a past long mourned. As I gazed out over the landscape, the beauty of the dawn a stark contrast to the tumultuous journey that had led me here, I felt a presence beside me. Turning, I saw Ethan, his face etched with the same resolve that mirrored my own. "Today's the day, isn't it?" Ethan's voice was steady, but beneath the surface, I could sense the undercurrent of anticipation and anxiety that mirrored my own. "It is. The first day of the rest of our lives," I responded, my voice imbued with a mixture of hope and determination. "We've been through the crucible, Ethan. We faced down the demons of our past, and now we stand on the threshold of a new beginning." Ethan nodded, a wry smile touching his lips. "I never thought I'd see the day when we'd be quoting cliches at each other as if they were gospel. But here we are, ready to turn those cliches into our reality." The light of the rising sun cast long shadows behind us, a symbolic representation of the darkness we were leaving behind. Before us lay the path we had chosen, a road less traveled but one that promised a journey toward healing and renewal. "I've been thinking," I began, my gaze returning to the horizon, "about the legacy we want to leave behind. We've been given a chance to break the cycle, to build something new from the wreckage of our past. It's a responsibility I don't take lightly." Ethan's expression grew solemn, the weight of our shared purpose a tangible thing between us. "Neither do I, David. We've seen firsthand the pain and destruction that comes from hiding from the truth, from allowing fear and desire to dictate our choices. It's up to us to choose a different path, to live our lives with integrity and honesty." The conversation flowed between us, a river of thoughts and plans for the future. We talked of forgiveness, not just for Eliza and Jenny, but for ourselves and the generations that had come before us. We spoke of accountability, of the importance of facing our mistakes head-on and learning from them. And we discussed the future, not as a distant, abstract concept, but as a living, breathing entity that we were in the process of shaping with every choice we made. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, its rays banishing the last of the shadows, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be obstacles and setbacks, moments of doubt and fear. But for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face those challenges head-on. "I'm ready," I said, turning to Ethan, my hand extended in a gesture of solidarity. "Ready to face whatever comes our way, to build a future that honors the lessons we've learned and the pain we've endured." Ethan took my hand, his grip firm and unyielding. "Together, David. We'll face it together. And someday, when we look back on this moment, we'll see it not as the end, but as the true beginning." With that, we turned away from the precipice, stepping forward into the light of the new dawn. The path before us was unmarked, the destination unknown. But we walked it together, side by side, united in our purpose and strengthened by the bonds of brotherhood that had been forged in the darkest of times. The new dawn was not just a symbol of the day that had begun. It was a metaphor for our lives, a reminder that even in the aftermath of the greatest storms, the sun would rise again, bringing with it the promise of a new day, a new beginning, and a new hope.